Thank you everyone for joining me. In our last video, we connected our HR database to Identity Manager. And we went ahead and configured the synchronization rules and brought those items into the Metaverse. One thing I didn't really go over yet are joins. I kind of talked about projections. Projections are projecting into the metaverse. They're creating items into the metaverse. Joins are, and you can see I have in the background here, these are all the joins that occurred. I'm just looking at the operations and specifically the full synchronization of the AI management agent. So we have joins here, and there were 93. So what's happening? Well, in our inbound synchronization rule for the AI management agent, we're saying the employee ID in the metaverse matches to the employee number in the data source. And we also have checked the create resource in MIM. If you're importing an object from a data source and it matches your relationship criteria, MIM will join that data source's object to its metaverse object. But if there is no match found, it's going to project a new object inside of the metaverse. So in essence, we really do have these 6 people in the metaverse. Most of the time, it's not the configuration of MIM or MIM that's the issue. A lot of times you'll find that the cleanliness of the data is the actual problem, and that's the case here. It couldn't find these 6 people because the relationship matching criteria, they really didn't match. So if you go into Active Directory and look for these people, we'll find these. And if we go into the Metaverse search, we'll find these 2 people. So I basically did it ends with 60318. So if we pull up this second item, this is going to be the nice thing about viewing the Metaverse object is that you can see the data sources that are providing this information or these attributes. So we can see the AD management agent is providing a 060318. But if we go over and look at the other object, we see that the AI management agent is providing the 60318. So really we need to clean up our data source. And it would be easier to clean up our Active Directory data source because the way SQL manages numbers, it'll most likely be easier just to take that leading 0 off of these 6 objects inside of Active Directory. So I'm just taking each of these employee IDs, adding a 0 in front of them, encapsulating them in quotations or apostrophes rather, and encapsulating or separating them by commas and then including them in parentheses. So I'm doing that so I can actually go into PowerShell and set these to an attribute or set them to a variable. So if we do employees, we have each of these numbers. So all that I'm going to do is go ahead and create a users variable, and I'm going to do an at sign and then an opening and closing parentheses. And that's just going to, I call it an array, and that's what it is. It's an object array. It's a simple way to get an array. So now I'm going to go through for each employee in employees, each of these employee numbers in that employee list, I'm going to say users plus equals get AD user, and then I'm going to put a filter employee ID is equal to employee. And then I'm going to include the employee ID in there so I can set it when it returns. So what we should have now is users, so we should have all of those users. So now we can go through for each user in users. I'm going to get the employee ID. Set it actually to a employee ID variable because we're going to change it. And then we're going to say user and pipe that to set AD user. Then we're going to do a dash employee ID. And inside parentheses, we're just going to modify the employee ID to remove the first character. And we'll do that by saying employee ID dot trim start. And then we can include what we want to remove. So we can say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and remove 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the start. But we just want to remove that 0. So we'll just trim the start of a 0. And then we'll close out all of our parentheses. And then we'll close out of our for each. So now if we go in, we have a Marcus43 as the user. It's underneath contractors remote office. So if we jump into AD and Marcus43, we jump to attribute editor, go down to employee ID, that trailing 0 is gone. So now they should match the 60318, 60318. So that's going to work. So let's go ahead and import. So we have 6 updates, and now let's go ahead and do a full sync. So here we go, they're updated. But we already have a person with 90958. So what happens when we try and do a full sync on our AI management agent? Well, they're still linked to the accounts that were projected. So they're linked wrong. So how can we fix that? So there's 2 ways we can do it. We can delete the object, or we can disconnect and connect the correct object. I like the deleting the object, so we'll delete the incorrect one. I just like doing it this way to keep the metaverse clean. And we're very early on. We're testing some things, so we kind of the cleaner we keep it early on, the less troubles we may have later on. So what we'll do is we'll go to the Metaverse Designer and we'll go to Person. And over here on the right-hand side, there's a Configure Object Deletion rule. We'll click on that. So there's 2 ways we can have this delete or mark something to be deleted. Don't confuse this with how the management agent deletes an object. This Configure Object Deletion rules tells the management agent when to delete said object. And inside the management agent, it tells the data source how to handle a deletion. So we don't need to change the management agents because we're not wanting to remove either of them. We just want to join them correctly. But we do need the metaverse to delete that object. So if we go down to delete the metaverse object when the connector from any of the following management agents is disconnected. So if we check the MIM service, that'll allow us to go inside of the portal and delete the incorrect accounts. And then when we do a full import, it will stage the deletion from the metaverse. So let's go ahead and do that. So now let's jump over to the portal. If we jump over to users and then drop down the advanced search, we can add a statement and say employee ID is, and now I have not done any export to the MIM service yet because it would confuse me of which object I should actually delete. If I already export the changes that I made in Active Directory, we'd have the duplicate employee IDs. So when we did this search, we would pull up two accounts. We would pull up the AD and then we would pull up the AI account. I want to delete the AI account because that one was the incorrectly joined account. So that's what I'm doing a search on. So we'll just go ahead and delete those. And there's an easier way. There's a way in PowerShell to do this, but I don't want to. That's a more advanced way of connecting with the portal, so I don't want to get there just yet. So I'm going to just run through each of those employee IDs and delete those people. And I did a little cheat here. Instead of searching and changing it, I actually changed the variable to of all to any. So now when I do a search, it should pull up all of the people. If you notice the way I did that, employee ID is employee ID. I just kept adding more employee IDs. So I'm just going to go through and delete all of them at once. So now we can actually go in and we'll do a management agent, and then we'll do run on the MIM service a full import. Now it's important. I've been only doing full imports. I don't have much data, but it's important to do a full import when you're looking for deletions. Delta imports don't catch deletions. Now we'll run a full synchronization. And now we have 6 provisioning disconnects from AI. And we have these 6 outbound attributes flow going to the MIM service. That's actually from AD. That was the AD update of the employee ID. I'm not going to export just yet. I'm going to go back to the MIM AI and run another full import. And there should be no changes there. And now we'll do a full synchronization. So we should have 6 joins. And there we go. There are 6 joins. So these 6 people have now been joined. If we look at the lineage and the Metaverse object properties, we can now see that these are joined to the correct accounts in AD. Or they're joined to the correct Metaverse object. So now we're going to have a little bit more data to export to the MIM service, the employee type. Now let's go ahead and do that full export, or an export rather, excuse me. And now I'll go back and run my full import and full sync. In my production MIM environment, these are the types of things that I troubleshoot. I don't troubleshoot the configuration because that's what I like about MIM. It's once you set it, it's there. And 8 times out of 10, it works as expected. And the 1 time out of 10, it's a random anomaly. And then the other 1 time out of 10, it's the data source that has the problems. I read a good post from Miss MISSMIIS. She blogs a lot. She's really, I like her stuff. She's big in the identity management community from what I can tell. I've read a lot of her things to actually get started and learning. And she has a few blog posts on the data source. And people don't really pay attention to the data source as much as we would. And in my industry, there's a big campaign in the education industry. There's a big campaign about making sure the source of the data is correct. I don't know about other industries, but we're across our state, we're wanting to gather a lot of aggregate data. So the preaching of having the data source as clean as possible. And in reality, yes, you want to do that. And were instances of, well, this is actually a SQL issue, and I know it is, because I use the exact same file to import into SQL as I did to import into AD. So it's the same file, it's just the way SQL stripped that leading zero. And yeah, it could have been easier for you to go in and modify SQL if you have more SQL experience. I just knew I could modify AD really fast and really quick. And you could have done the same thing, except you could have disconnected the AD account and let the AI account stay there and have the AD account join. This is just to show you, okay, here are the errors and here's a way to fix it. So I'm going to keep this episode really short and I'm going to end it right here. We just cleaned up that data, and I'm sure later on we're actually going to talk about the other method of cleaning up, the disconnecting and joining to the correct item. But this was a really quick, I wanted to keep my Metaverse clean. But thank you very much for sticking it in with me. If you liked the video, you can hit the little bitty thumbs up for me. You can subscribe. You can add some comments and talk with me in the comment section. But either way, I hope to see you next time.